Hey guys, our devotion today is from 2 Corinthians chapter 2. Before we get into that, let's remember to be in prayer for our church family today. And tomorrow we're praying for the Hypes family. So that is Drew and Ashley, and Hunter and Hannah and Hallie. So let's remember to pray for them. When I read these kind of chapters from the letters of Paul, it really brings the story continuing to deal with the Corinthian church because he loves them. He wants to pull them through their struggles. And we saw in 1 Corinthians how he was having to speak so much correction into them. He was having to speak harshly with them. We get the idea that he's been there before and he's had to speak harshly with them then. In this letter, Paul is really he's bringing them through that. He's bringing them through to the other side. He's helping them push on towards Christ, towards Christ's likeness, towards honoring God in their church family. And it's not necessarily an easy road for them or for Paul. I mean, you can tell that he is burdened. He talks about being worried about them here in the middle of the chapter when he was talking about how he was in Troas and he wanted to do ministry and he had this opportunity, but his spirit was just burdened because he was thinking about the Corinthian church. And he was thinking about how they were receiving the letter that he had sent to them. He's troubled because of them and he wants to see them grow. And I read through that and it just makes me think so much about what we're supposed to be about as Christians, as the church family, lifting one another up, burdened for each other, speaking truth into each other's lives, but just troubled for each other, that in a way that, we rejoice together, but we also bear one another's burdens. And if there's some of us who are struggling with sin or temptation or have other problems in our lives, that it is the burden of the rest of us to gather around them, just like Paul was burdened for this Corinthian church, to see them succeed and to see them to take hold of what Christ had taken hold of for them. I love this chapter. He talks about forgiveness here in the first part of this chapter. And he's talking about this one who had received punishment in the church. We imagine that there was somebody in this church who was doing something that was not right. And Paul spoke about that in his first letter. He brought some words of correction. And now this person has experienced judgment, right? The church has come together and maybe they had to even go as far as removing him from the fellowship in order to shake him and to wake him up and to bring him to repentance. And Paul talks about how there certainly is a time for forgiveness. We're not meant to overwhelm a fallen brother or someone who's struggling with grief by continually beating them down, but it's for the purpose of reinstating them. And that's what he's calling them to do. Forgiveness. Be the loving church that this person needs. Bring them to repentance. Sure, welcome them back in, bring them back in, show them the love of God, show them the forgiveness. And he mentions, we have to do this because we know the schemes of the devil. He's working, trying to divide our church, and he wants us to hold on to our hurts. He wants us to hold on to unforgiveness because that will bring division in our church. And Paul is warning them against this, to be aware of the schemes of the devil. I think that's something certainly for us to think about today. First of all, that we need to be willing to speak that truth into other people's lives, but our main focus is on Christ and us as a church body, pulling one another along sometimes when it's necessary, always being quick to forgive, but our main mindset is glorifying God, glorifying Christ, drawing close to Him. In the second part of the chapter, Paul talks about just the honor of being used by God, being in that procession. When he talks about spreading the gospel and who is, let me see, what does he say? who is sufficient for these things when he's talking about preaching the gospel? And the answer is really none of us are sufficient for what God has called us to. We just live in dependence on him, and we glorify him. And so I'm thankful for this passage today. I pray that God has spoken to you through this passage. If God revealed something to you, leave us a message on Facebook. We do go back and read those. Even if we don't always reply, leave us a message, leave each other a message. Let's minister to one another. And God bless you.